Yo, I just took this island and I've got about 10 minutes to talk before I lose the island. Well, before people start invading me. So I figured I could talk a little bit about turf battles and the current state. If you notice, I am one versus winning these. I could use my G12 gauntlet and kill them all together. But I don't like doing it like that. I think that I used way too many potions and I don't have an absurd amount of money. So I've got to be wise about how I spend my potions and my Lenny. So I've made a G3 Cat Claw. This took me I had 680 EC, and then I sold another thing and got it on the first try. So it took 720 EC to make this perfect. It was 3 out of 4 perfect, but it still took $74. $72 to make this perfect. I have $0, so I don't have any money to invest on this, so I'm grateful that a handful of players were able to afford some of the things that I was selling so that I could continue playing this game. So, first up, let's talk about leveling. I really enjoyed the leveling experience this time, all the way up until 200, and then I was kind of forced into instances. And instances are good, but I feel like there should be alternatives to leveling, and you can get experience from V1, V2, V3, V4, V5. Let's just say them all. But I think that all of those are kind of insignificant. Realistically, when I look at this, I think of it as if there should be kind of two different metas. There's one meta where you earn wealth and make progress, and then there's another meta where you gain experience and just kind of make your way to the end of the game or whatever bracket you feel like sitting at. So yeah, it was really good leveling. Levels 1 to 200. Hardly got stuck. There's a few places in East Latians where we were kind of wondering. I played with another friend of mine that we both played Hyper Engines together. We've been playing for years, and anyway, we kind of came to the conclusion that the mage monsters just hit way too hard, and the range monsters hit way too hard, and it's almost like you can't level in East Latians without taking all of that damage, and it just kind of hurts, I guess, to see that. If you get stuck in East Lad, then it's as if you're kind of pushed into instances. And sure, you can go farm Lad Grace from the color zones and other various bosses around the game, but realistically, you ought to like make a 5/5 jewelry and sell it for 5 EC instead, and just buy, make two of those and buy 10 Lad Grace instead of farming for them. Their drop rates are average, to put it nicely, I suppose. I don't mean to rag on the game. I'm just kind of giving my critique, my feedback from this season, things that I have noticed, things that I experienced, things that I would like to see improved. So we talked about leveling. Leveling's quite good. I am 290 on this character, and I did make a 160 red mage to carry myself around. I'm closing in on 300, and I'm real excited to use the XP orbs because I would love to skip that and get to the final tier of coins, which I think let's make this topic number 2 is this. It's unfortunate that instances are kind of the best way to farm gear and gems and all of that. It kind of makes me wonder, well, if everybody's so interested in instances, can we tune up the islands a little bit, make them a little more beneficial? All right, I don't want to go into islands yet, so let's just talk about the instances. We started off running level 1 instances, and that was quite good, but you do have to have kind of like a 15-15 tank, and they've got to be ready and willing to tank. And I can't help but wonder, why as a fist am I not allowed to... Why can't I force me to tank, for example. I don't really know a good way of putting that, but I have a cat claw, so I'd be willing to tank, most of the single bosses because I don't take, well, I do take damage, but I can heal it quite easily. So now my cat claw is grade 3, but there is a grade 4, and you have to be level 276 to wear it. So from what I've heard from other players is that the grade 4 cat claw is supposed to be comparable to G13 sets, but it's just not viable. I was told that it's a waste of time to make a G3 cat claw, that there's no point in having it. And I actually want the G3 cat claw for the non-season server. So I'm quite excited that this went perfect. I get to use it for the season. But that was a pretty steep cost. $72, I believe. So I can't help but wonder, are we going to look at Ionic weapons again? I know that we've already looked at them, and that's how we got the grade 4 enhancer. But can we look at them and make them viable? So yeah, level 1 instances are great. Good XP. We go through them fast. We smash them pretty easy. Fairly low level tank requirements. But the drops are just so bad. I don't even want to talk about the drops because it's RNG. And RNG is fickle, I believe, is the word I want to say there. I feel like I'm struggling to give some more information about instances, so let's just go ahead and move on to the next thing. And just kind of as a whole, I would say that instances are quite good, but I do wish that we had an alternative leveling means that wasn't just mobbing the boss rooms in Delphroth Dungeon. That's possible, but I don't know. I haven't tried to level there too much. I've checked it with some friends to see how much XP it is, and it just doesn't seem very viable. And so we spent quite a lot of time just kind of waiting around for instances. So let's move on to the third topic. Let's talk about islands. Islands are one of the cornerstones of turf battles, like one of the main features. Oh, my durability's gone. So islands are one of the main features of turf battles, and I think that it really sets turf battles apart from the rest of the industry entirely. The way that the islands are built, it incentivizes players to stop at certain brackets and prepare for their jump to the next bracket. And again, I don't want to rag on the game or the developers or anything, but I do want to say that I don't believe that the islands are quite serving the purpose that they used to, or that they're intended to either. I believe that when we look at islands, we should be prepared to make an alternate character so that we can farm players who make an alternate character so that they can farm gems. And it's just kind of the circle of life for PvP in this game. PVMers need resources, and so they go venture out to places that are wealthy, and they get killed by other players so that they can try to get those resources. And then otherwise, you could go to like East Latianes, east of the Coliseum, and you could farm there for however long and make, it's like 5 mil a pull if you got the mobile box. That's pretty good Lenny. But when we're talking about gems and stuff, that's a bit of a headache to actually sort through your inventory and try to farm the gems that you're after. I've now exceeded the 10-minute grace period for having taken this island, and shockingly, I haven't seen any players trying to kill me yet. As far as I'm aware, this is the most contested island. And so this is Pet Island. This is for levels 275 to 300. And I'm using a G3 Cat Claw. Because apparently there's no point in making a G4 Cat Claw. But I think that this campfire setup, where they're all kind of bunched together, I think that it's definitely in the range of your AoE, but in mediocre gears like this 1111 set that I'm wearing, I really can't be asked to tank the entire spawn all at once to farm. I mean, I'm recording at 13 minutes here, and I've got 103 tokens, so That kind of gives you an idea of how fast this G3 cat claw is. But at least I'm able to save a lot of money. Is it worth the amount of money that I'm not gaining? I don't know, that's debatable. But I don't have to farm the Lenny. So again, it's debatable. So I want to go over here and let's have a look at one of these by itself. So here we've got Koromon, Banderscan, Mini Lycan, Drake, Zombie Tree. Zombie trees used to be how you get the tier 1 like nonsense gems. The Shanshas, the Janais, the Brahmas, the Dins, and the Sohas. We'd get those from the zombie trees. And then on the other islands, there was also the little mini mushrooms, and they typically gave just regular Ceph gems. And then there was the main monsters, kind of like these mini lichens and such, and they give kind of the bigger gems. But now we have this token system. I do like the token system. I can definitely appreciate killing a zombie tree and being able to get a colonium gem in exchange for the zombie tree. So that's a really cool system, and I'm not suggesting that we do anything about the tokens. I think the tokens are quite good. What I would like to suggest, though, is that we play into the strengths of each of these monsters. So, for example, this Drake, this is the perfect kind of monster for a melee character to fight. It does a lot of damage. It's built for 1 versus 1 combat. And I'm not saying that you can't kill all of these in an AoE. I do it, but I don't really want to. I understand that one of the main reasons that this was pitched and came through the way that it has is because melee characters were having trouble kind of struggling to keep up with ranged characters farming islands. And that's exactly how that works, is that they're built differently, they interact differently, so things that you have to kite around are going to be more friendly to ranged characters than they are to melee characters. So what you have to do is you have to give a sort of balance so that a melee character finds it worth being a melee character and killing a 1 versus 1 mob, instead of being a melee character and going off and killing a monster that's typically a part of a bigger mob of monsters. Let's take the old condo, for example. People used to run around and just gather all the imps, and then they'd kill all of the imps, and maybe their allies didn't have any imps to farm now. And I understand that that's an issue, but what should be going on here is that, for example, with the new token system, your melee friend can go off and kill the zombie trees and the mini mushrooms and the ghostly drakes, all of these range type monsters that are intended to be inconveniences for range type characters, and actually make them be benefits to melee type characters. If I'm gonna sit here with my cat claw, this zombie tree can have 4 times the health and half the drop rate. Okay, maybe that was a bad example. What if we left all the drop rates the same for ranged monsters, and then we just lowered the drop rates of melee monsters and took them off of this chaining distance that's going on here? In my opinion, you should be able to grab all of these Banderscans, Koromons, and you should be able to kite them around the entire island if you want. And then if someone shows up and kills you, that's your bad. You lost that entire lure. That's how we used to play. And it worked for all brackets. I don't know how long it's been since you've been on the level 90 island, but it's quite difficult. I wouldn't say that it's very viable at all. So I kind of went off on quite a long tangent there about islands, but I just want to say I really think that we need to focus in on the tiered gameplay that the islands offer us. And if we can focus on a way to make the entire game have life again, then I think that'll be best for the longevity of the game as a whole. All right, number 5. This is the rant. This is the big rant where I'm gonna go on and say why I have a G12 gauntlet and why I'm using a G3 cat claw and why I'm in just need gems and not one of the bigger tribes. See, when you're leveling up, you don't really need a community to help you level. It really helps if you have like 15 dudes and you all level together, and yeah, that's a good time. Especially at the beginning of the season, I would love to have a 15-man team, but that's just not always feasible. So, kind of what I end up doing most of the time is I end up leveling myself by myself. I like to do the dolo. I'll make a red mage and a fist, and then the red mage can level the fist up until the fist is ready to take care of himself around like 120 or 160 or whatever it is. Basically, once I got Blast Fist, that's when I was ready to play on the fist. Yeah, I decided to sit at 275 for a while. I was wearing full G12s. I had 17 van braces, a 17 helmet, and 17 boots. But I only had a 12-12 chest, so I was kind of struggling for power. And not just power, but even to stay alive. I was getting two-shotted by red mages, and I get that red mages two-shot me, but when the Blade Warrior started 2-3 hitting me, that's when I decided to move up. My buddy actually suggested that I move on and go for 300, and then I can get in the new G12 or G13s, and we can kill monsters faster, and the game gets better, and the end of the game and all that. And I really think that this is a major pigeonhole that the industry puts us in modern era, where they think that we all want the end of the game, and really we just want a piece of the game that we can call our own. For example, let's say the entire day that I didn't have Pet Island and I wasn't running instances, what was I doing? Well, let's go about it a different way. What could I have been doing? Pet Island's under full contest, so I am unable to fight. I cannot tank more than 2 hits, so I really have to get on here and sneak this island. Otherwise, I'm not getting it. So, there goes my gems. All gems. No trans gems, no Cephs, no Ceph choices, no Colonium gems, no divine gems, no magic gems. Nothing. Not even a Brahma crystal for me. Because I can't go on these islands. So, now let's look at the alternative. We could go to V5 and farm some G13s, but inventory management is such a big portion of the game that you can only get so many before you have to leave and come back using another scroll, or you've got to run or whatever. It's not a very pleasing situation to farm G13s from V5. Now, jewelry, on the other hand, there's a lot of G11 jewelry in V5. Now, that's a good farm. And I was actually getting like 0.3% per boss in V5 at 290. That's how I got from 10% to 23%. A nice person took us to V5 earlier, and I was very grateful. I got a lot of jewelry and a handful of items as well. Now, let's say we're not going to V5. Maybe V5's too hard, or we don't have a toxin pill, or whatever it is, we're not going to V5. Next option, Catastrophic Cavern. But you need the full set, and you also want the special weapon, or you're not going to deal nearly enough damage to make it viable either. Okay, so if you don't have the full set, and you probably want full 10s, which you get from level 10 instances, which I haven't even talked about yet this video. Otherwise, you can make your own. You could go spend purified orbs to buy some, and then make some, but they break almost as often as the regular G11 blessing items do. Oh, no, it was taken. But I got 182 tokens in almost 30 minutes. That's not bad, I think. I could have gotten probably like 6 times that if I wasn't using my cat claw. Alright, let's finish up this video. So, if you're not going to V5 because it's too hard, or you don't have toxin pills or whatever, you go to Catastrophic Cavern. If you can't go to Catastrophic Cavern because you don't have the armor, the toxin pills, or the weapon to do enough damage and make it viable, Then let's talk about V4. And also, while we're talking about V4, we're in this scenario because we cannot take an island, because the PvP scales far too hard for us to be competitive in a base 12-12 set, 11-11 set. So in V4, we can get some G13s. Nope, I don't think we can get G13s. We can only get G11 items. We can only get G11 jewelries. And so maybe V4 is just not our cup of tea since we're not getting anything but jewelry. And so we could look at V3, but V3 is going to be even worse than V4. So maybe we're farming them bosses there for. Anyway, whatever. Okay, so Delfroth is not viable unless you're actually farming something that you want to farm. And islands are not viable unless you can compete or at least tank 2 hits. And instances are not viable solo, so you have to have a party. Yeah, so that's the rent. So I guess if I were to make any suggestions on how to fix this stuff, number one for leveling, I think you just need to make sure that there's viable opportunities for solo players. And I'm not talking about like grinding the teeth in the mud. I mean actual viable opportunities so that people can get 300 solo. And then you need to make other opportunities for group play so that they're incentivized to be a group, because you can get 300 solo, but if you did it as a group, then you can get so and so. And the instances already offer quite a few so and so's. I think number two is gear. So, gear is a major cornerstone of the game. And that's basically what the game thrives on, is a gear competition. And number three, the islands. I really think that the islands need to be readdressed and make them more fun to play, make them more viable for all brackets, and incentivize players to actually have different brackets of character. For example, right now my island just got taken and I basically have no chance of getting the other server. So I'm probably going to go to bed. But if I had a way to farm master gems, I could make a lower level character and go play on Kando or something to that effect. But this guy doesn't really have a way to get gems. I can go to East Lad and farm some gems there. But for masters, man, I'm 290. I don't need to scrounge gems for masters for an alt. That's crazy. Anyway, some food for thought. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, leave a sub, blah, blah, blah. Peace.